The arena of Zinra was built from crystal and steel. Tall spires shone under the pale sun, casting bright reflections across the stone floor. It was a place of honor, a place where warriors from every world came to prove their strength. Today, the seats were full, and thousands of alien voices filled the air with excitement. The challenge between the Princess of Zinra and the strange off-world warrior had drawn a great crowd. At the highest point of the arena, Princess Riva stood with her chin high and her eyes full of pride. Her long silver hair fell over her shoulders, and her armor gleamed in the light. She was young, but she was known for her skill with the blade and her sharp tongue. Riva had fought in many matches and had never been defeated. Every warrior of Zinra dreamed of earning her respect, but very few had come close. Today, the challenger was not from Zinra. He was not even from a world known for warriors. He was a human from a distant planet called Earth. When Riva first heard the name, she laughed. Humans were not famous for strength or speed. They were soft beings who used machines and tools for everything. To her, a human warrior sounded like a joke. The gates of the arena opened, and the human walked in. He was covered from head to toe in heavy armor that shone like polished iron. The helmet hid his face, and the armor made his body look large and slow. Every step he took made a deep sound on the stone floor. Riva tilted her head and smiled. To her, he looked like a child hiding inside a toy shell. The crowd laughed as well. Their voices echoed through the arena as they whispered and joked about the strange human. Some shouted that he would not last a minute. Others said the armor must be to protect his weak body. Riva listened to every word and felt her pride grow stronger. This match would be easy, and she would make sure the human learned his place. Riva walked forward until she stood in the center of the arena. She raised her voice so that every seat could hear her words. "So this is the warrior from Earth," she said. "Tell me, human, do you plan to fight or to hide inside that shell all day?" The human said nothing. He did not move. He stood tall and silent, the dark visor of his helmet showing no sign of his eyes. Riva waited for an answer, but none came. The silence made the crowd laugh louder. They thought the human was afraid to speak. Riva began to circle him slowly, her boots tapping against the crystal floor. She looked at the armor from every side. It was thick and strong, but to her, it only showed weakness. She stopped in front of him and spoke again. "Is this what humans are?" she asked. "A fragile species that needs metal to walk into battle. Do you think this will help you against me? You will not even feel the first strike. You will fall before you can take off that helmet." Still, the human said nothing. He turned his head slightly as if watching her, but his body did not move. His silence was strange. Most challengers answered her, either with pride or anger. This one gave her nothing. It made her curious, but she pushed the feeling aside. She raised her blade and pointed it at him. The blade was long and bright, powered by the crystal energy of her world. It was a weapon that could cut through stone like water. The light from the blade shone on the human's armor, but he did not react. He stood like a statue, waiting for something. "Very well," Riva said. "When the gong sounds, you will learn why Zinra calls me undefeated." The crowd cheered, their voices rising like a storm. Drums began to beat from the walls, deep and loud, filling the air with tension. The arena floor was wide and clear, the perfect place for two warriors to meet. Above them, the sky was blue and endless, and the wind carried the sound of the drums. Far across the city, Riva took her position on one side of the arena. The human walked to the other side, his steps slow but steady. He did not seem nervous. If he was afraid, he hid it well. Riva held her blade ready and studied him one last time. She wondered what kind of face was under that helmet. Was he old or young? Was he proud or frightened? She told herself it did not matter. The match would end quickly. The drums stopped. For a moment, the arena was silent. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Then the great gong sounded, deep and loud, shaking the crystal walls. The challenge had begun. Riva rushed forward with speed that surprised even the crowd. Her blade moved in a bright arc as she aimed for his side. She expected him to stumble under the weight of his armor. She expected him to fall, but he did not. The human raised his arm and blocked the strike with his shield. The sound of metal against crystal rang across the arena. Riva pulled back and attacked again. Strike after strike, her blade flashed like lightning, and every time, the human blocked her with calm precision. He moved slower than she did, but every movement was solid and sure. There was no panic in him, no wasted motion. The crowd stopped. Laughing, they began to watch in silence. Riva felt a spark of surprise, but she told herself it was nothing. The match had just begun. She would break through his defense soon. Yet, as she faced him across the shining floor, a small thought came into her mind, a thought she had never felt before in a match. What if this human was not what she believed? The first clash had ended without a clear winner. Riva stepped back after her series of attacks, her blade humming softly in the still air. The sound of metal striking crystal still rang in her ears. She looked at the human, waiting for some sign of weakness, but there was none. His stance had not changed. His breathing was steady. The heavy armor showed no scratches. It was as if her blade had touched nothing. The crowd was silent now. Their laughter had faded into uncertain whispers. For the first time, Riva felt a weight inside her chest, a feeling she could not name. She told herself it was only the heat of the match. She refused to believe a human could make her feel doubt. "You defend well," she said in a sharp voice. "But is that all? Do you hide in that armor because you cannot fight, or are you afraid of me?" The human said nothing. His silence was like a wall between them, and it made her voice sound louder in her own ears. She felt her pride rising like fire. No one ignored her words. No one made her feel small in her own arena. "You think this armor makes you strong," she said again, walking in a slow circle around him. "But it is only a shell. Inside, you are soft. You are weak. Every species in this galaxy knows it. Humans are not warriors. You are builders and farmers. You live in small worlds and hide behind machines. You have no place here." Still, the human did not answer. He only turned his head slightly as she moved, his visor catching the light. The black surface showed her reflection, and she hated how calm it looked. She wanted him to speak. She wanted him to show fear or anger. Anything would be better than this cold silence. Riva tightened her grip on the blade. "Do you hear me, human? When this match ends, the whole galaxy will remember what happens to those who challenge Zinra." The human shifted his shield but still said nothing. Riva felt her heart beating faster. This was not how she imagined the fight. She had thought it would be quick, that the human would fall after the first strike. But he was still standing, and he had not even attacked. She wondered why. Was he waiting for something? Was he planning to tire her out? The thought made her jaw tighten. She raised her voice to the crowd. "Do you see this, people of Zinra? This is what humans are. They hide in metal and hope it will save them. But armor cannot protect a weak heart." The crowd cheered again, but the sound was not as strong as before. Riva felt the change. They were no longer laughing as they had at the start. Now they were watching closely, as if trying to understand the human. She could not allow doubt to spread. She needed to show them she was still in control. Riva moved closer, her steps slow but firm. She stopped just an arm's length away from the human. She lifted her blade and placed the glowing edge under his helmet, so close that the light touched the metal. "Do you know why you will lose?" she asked, her voice calm now, like ice. "Because you do not belong here. This arena is for warriors, not for creatures who hide." For a long moment, nothing moved. The only sound was the wind carrying across the open arena. Then, slowly, the human raised his free hand and pushed the blade away from his helmet. His grip was strong, stronger than she expected. She pulled her blade back and stepped away, her heart beating hard in her chest. The human had still not spoken, but the way he moved sent a strange feeling through her. He was not afraid, not even a little. Riva turned quickly and walked a few steps back, hiding the heat that touched her cheeks. She lifted her blade high and spoke again to the crowd. "You see, even now he says nothing. He knows what is coming. He knows this fight will end with him on the ground. The gong sounded again, calling for the second round to begin. Riva raised her blade and took her stance. She would not hold back this time. She would end this and show everyone that her words were true. She charged forward with all her speed. Her boots hit the stone floor like thunder. She swung her blade high and brought it down with the force of a falling star. The human blocked it again, his shield meeting her strike with a loud ring. The shock ran through her arms, but she did not stop, strike after strike. She attacked with all her strength. The air burned with the light of her blade. Sparks flew as crystal met metal. But no matter how many times she struck, the human blocked every blow. His movements were calm, smooth, and without fear. He did not push forward. He did not swing wildly. He only defended, but his defense was perfect. Each time she thought she had an opening, his shield was there. Each time she tried to break his stance, he stood like a mountain. Minutes passed. Riva felt sweat on her forehead. Her arms began to ache from the weight of her blade, but she kept going. She could not stop. She would not stop. She was the princess of Zinra, undefeated in every match. She could not lose to a silent human in armor. Finally, she stepped back, breathing hard. Her chest rose and fell as she held her blade ready, but she did not move forward again. The human lowered his shield slowly, as if waiting for her next move. His visor still showed nothing. No anger, no pride, no fear. Only that silent, endless calm. The crowd was quiet again. The sound of her breathing seemed loud in her own ears. She looked at the human and felt something new. Not anger, not pride. It was something she did not want to name, but it grew stronger with every passing moment. What kind of warrior fights like this? What kind of strength hides behind that helmet? The second round ended, but the match was far from over. The great gong sounded again, its deep note rolling through the arena like thunder. The wind carried the echo across the city of crystal towers, and the crowd sat in silence, waiting for what would happen next. Their laughter was gone. Their cheers had faded. Now they watched with wide eyes, unsure what to believe. Princess Riva stood in the center of the arena, her chest rising and falling as she caught her breath. Her arms ached from the weight of her blade, but she kept her stance firm. She refused to show weakness, not before the crowd and not before the silent human who stood across from her. Like an unshaken wall, the human had not moved much during the fight. His heavy armor was spotless, his shield was steady in his hand, and his breathing seemed calm. He looked as if the last round had cost him nothing. The sight made something twist inside Riva. She told herself it was anger, but deep down, she knew it was something else. The match was not going the way she planned. She had expected an easy victory, a fight that would end in moments. But now, the crowd was whispering in low voices. She could feel their eyes shifting between her and the human, wondering who would win. That thought stung her pride more than anyone could. The voice of the arena master echoed from the high towers. Third round, begin. The gong sounded again. Riva tightened her grip on her blade. This time she would not rush. She would not waste her strength. She would fight with the skill that had made her undefeated. She moved forward slowly, her boots tapping against the crystal floor. The human did not move. He waited, his shield ready, his sword held low but firm. His silence was like a shadow that followed her every step. Riva struck first. A quick slash aimed at his arm. The human raised his shield and blocked it with perfect timing. She spun and aimed for his leg, but he shifted his stance and turned the blow aside. Her strikes were fast, but his defense was faster than she expected. There was no panic in his movements, no wasted motion. It was as if he had seen every strike before it came. The sound of steel and crystal filled the arena as their weapons clashed again and again. Sparks flew from the edges. The ground rang under their boots. The crowd leaned forward in their seats, their voices hushed. They had never seen a fight like this. Riva's attacks grew sharper. She feinted left and struck right. She dropped low and swung upward. Each time, the human blocked her with calm precision. She tried to break his guard with strength, but his shield held like a wall of stone. She tried to outpace him with speed, but he moved just enough to turn her strikes away. Minutes passed, and Riva felt her muscles burn. Her arms grew heavy, her breath came faster. Still, the human stood firm. He had not attacked once, yet she felt as if she were the one losing ground. She hated that feeling. She hated the calm that never left him. Finally, she jumped back to gain space, her blade glowing bright in her hands. The human lowered his shield slightly and stood still. The two of them stared at each other across the arena floor. The sun caught the edge of his armor, making it shine like fire. "What are you waiting for?" she called out, her voice sharp with anger. "Why do you not fight back? Are you afraid to face me without your shield?" The human said nothing. His silence was worse than any insult. It felt like he was looking through her, like he knew something she did not. She wanted to break that calm. She wanted to make him speak. Riva rushed forward again, her blade flashing like lightning. She struck high, then low, then high again. Her arms screamed in pain, but she did not stop. She would not stop until he fell. Her blade came down in a final heavy strike aimed at his shield. The sound rang across the arena like a bell, and then, for the first time, the human moved forward. It was only a single step, but it was enough. He pushed her strike aside and raised his sword. It moved with a speed she did not expect. She barely had time to block as his blade came toward her. The force of the blow sent her sliding back across the floor. Her arms shook from the impact. The crowd gasped. Riva steadied herself and raised her blade again. But the human did not attack. He stood where he was, sword in hand, shield raised, waiting. It was as if he wanted her to understand something. He could fight back whenever he wished. He had chosen not to. Riva's heart pounded. She felt sweat run down her back. For the first time in her life, she felt the weight of fear touch her mind. She pushed it away, but it stayed like a shadow behind her thoughts. The human began to move, one step at a time. He closed the distance between them. His armor made no sound now. His steps were slow, but each one felt heavy, like the steps of a giant. His presence filled the arena like a storm that had been waiting too long to break. Riva held her ground, but her fingers tightened on the hilt of her blade. She told herself she was ready, but her breath betrayed her. It came faster than before. She had faced many warriors in her life. None had made her feel like this. The human stopped just a few steps away. For the first time since the match began, he raised his head as if to look at her more closely. The black visor of his helmet caught the light, hiding his face but making his presence even stronger. Then, without a word, he raised his sword in a slow, steady motion. It was not a threat. It was a promise. The promise that the next strike would not be a block. The next strike would be real. The gong sounded again, calling for the final stage of the fight. The air seemed to freeze around them. The crowd did not cheer. They did not speak. They only watched as the human and the princess faced each other. In silence, for the first time, Riva wondered if this was a fight she could win. The great gong faded into silence, and the air inside the arena felt heavy, almost alive. The final round had begun. High above, the banners of Zinra waved in the bright light, but no one looked at them now. Every eye in the grandstands was fixed on the two figures standing in the center of the arena. Princess Riva stood with her blade raised, her body tense, her chest rising and falling with every breath. Sweat ran down her brow, and her arms ached from the fight. She had given everything to break the human's guard, yet he stood before her without a single sign of weakness. His armor was still flawless, and his stance was calm as if the battle had not touched him at all. The human raised his sword slowly and set his shield forward. His movements were smooth, controlled, like a river flowing between stones. He had not spoken a word since the fight began, but now, in his silence, there was something different. It felt stronger, like a voice without sound, telling her that the time for defense was over. Riva tightened her grip. She had never lost in the arena. She could not lose now. Not before her people. Not before the stranger from a world they all called weak. She pushed away the doubt in her mind and shouted as she charged forward. Her blade flashed like fire as she struck at his chest. The human turned his shield, catching the blow with ease. Sparks flew. Riva spun to his side and struck again, faster than before, but he blocked her once more. She moved like a storm, her attacks fierce and relentless, yet every strike met the same wall of steel. The human did not step back. He did not falter. He only moved forward, one step at a time. Then it happened. In the space between her strikes, the human moved with sudden speed. His shield swept wide, knocking her blade away. Before she could react, his sword came down in a heavy arc. She barely raised her weapon in time, and the force of his strike sent her sliding back across the floor. Her boots scraped against the crystal ground as she fought to keep her balance. The crowd gasped. For the first time, they saw the human attack, and it was nothing like they expected. His strike carried power like a falling mountain, yet it was controlled, not wild. He did not rush after her. He stood tall, his sword ready. His presence like a shadow that covered the arena. Riva steadied herself and ran forward again. But this time the human met her with a strike of his own. Their blades clashed, and the sound rang through the arena like thunder. She pushed with all her strength, but his power held firm. It was like pressing against the roots of an ancient tree. No matter how hard she tried, he did not move. Another strike came, faster than before. She blocked, but the force shook her arms. Then another, and another. The human's attacks were not wild or rushed. They were precise, each one aimed with deadly calm. Riva felt her guard breaking. Her arms grew weaker. Her breath came hard and fast. The crowd no longer whispered. They were silent, their eyes wide, as they watched the princess of Zinra pushed back by the human they had mocked at the start. The sound of steel filled the air, louder than the wind, louder than the heartbeat pounding in Riva's ears. At last, a heavy strike knocked her blade from her hands. It flew across the floor, landing far from her reach. Riva stumbled back and dropped to one knee. Her chest burned, her hands shook. For the first time in her life, her weapon was gone, and she stood without defense. The human stopped in front of her. His sword hung at his side, but he did not raise it for the final blow. He only stood there, tall and silent, looking down at her through the black visor of his helmet. His presence was so strong that Riva felt as if the entire arena had vanished, leaving only the two of them in the vast empty space. The crowd waited. They expected him to finish the fight, to strike and claim victory. But he did nothing. He lowered his sword and set his shield aside. Then, slowly, his hand moved to the side of his helmet. Riva watched in silence, her breath caught in her throat. The human's fingers gripped the edge of his helmet, and with a slow pull, he lifted it away. The light of the sun touched his face for the first time, and the sight made Riva's eyes widen. He was nothing like she imagined. His skin was smooth and warm in color, marked by faint scars that told stories of battles long past. His eyes were clear and steady, holding a strength that no armor could hide. There was no fear in them, no pride, only calm power and something deeper. Something that made Riva's heart beat faster without reason. The arena gasped as one voice. The people of Zinra had never seen a human like this. They had thought of his kind as weak, fragile, unfit for war. But this man stood like a tower of iron, his presence filling the air even without his armor. He looked down at Riva and spoke for the first time. His voice was deep and steady, carrying across the silent arena. Strength is not in armor. He said, "It is in will." The words struck her harder than any blade. She stared at him, unable to look away. In that moment, everything she believed about humans shattered like glass. He was not weak. He was not soft. He was stronger than she had ever imagined, not because of his armor, but because of something inside him that no weapon could break. The human turned and walked toward the center of the arena. He placed his sword in the ground and stood tall, his eyes on the high towers where the judges watched. The gong sounded one last time, and the voice of the arena master rang out, "Victory goes to the human." The crowd erupted, their cheers shaking the walls of the grandstands. Riva remained on her knees, staring at the man who had defeated her without hatred, without cruelty, and without words until the very end. For the first time in her life, she felt what true strength meant, and she knew this was only the beginning. The crowd's cheers still echoed in the grand arena long after the gong's final sound. The human stood tall at the center, his chest rising and falling steadily. His face, now uncovered, was calm and steady. Round him, the people of Zinra whispered in awe and disbelief. The princess, still kneeling on the ground, looked up at him with eyes full of confusion and respect. Riva slowly rose to her feet. The pain in her arms and legs was nothing compared to the ache in her heart. She had been defeated, and not by force alone. She had been defeated by a strength she could not see before. She wanted answers. She needed to understand how a human, a species she thought weak, had beaten her in the greatest arena of their world. The arena master stepped forward, his voice loud and clear. "Human warrior, tell us your name. Tell us who you are." The human lowered his gaze for a moment, then looked up and spoke clearly. "My name is Darren. I come from a world called Earth." A murmur rose in the crowd. "Earth," one voice whispered. "A world far from here, beyond the stars?" Darren nodded. "Yes. Earth is a small world in a distant part of the galaxy. It is not known for great power or strength, but it is a world of people who survive through will, courage, and determination." Princess Riva stepped forward, still holding her blade. "Why did you come here, Darren? Why did you enter this arena?" Darren's eyes met hers. "I came because I was invited. I came to learn. And I came to show that strength is not only in weapons or armor, but in the heart." Riva's lips tightened. She remembered the pain of losing. She remembered how her pride had pushed her to fight harder, only to be stopped by calm strength. "Your armor was unlike any we have seen. It was strong, yes, but it was your will that was stronger." Darren smiled slightly. "The armor protects the body. The will protects the spirit. Without will, armor is nothing. I have trained many years to prepare for this fight. But more than that, I have learned that strength comes from believing in yourself, even when others do not." The princess looked out at the crowd. The people of Zinra had grown quiet, listening carefully. Their beliefs about humans were changing. In that moment, they had thought of Darren's kind as fragile, soft, and weak. But now they saw something different. They saw courage. They saw power. Riva lowered her blade and bowed her head. "I was wrong. I thought humans were weak. I see now that I was mistaken. Your strength is not in your armor, but in your heart." Darren nodded. "We all have more strength than we know, sometimes. We must face the hardest battles to find it." The arena master stepped forward again. "Darren, will you accept the honor of being a warrior of Zinra? Will you stand with us as a symbol of strength and courage?" Darren looked at the princess and then at the crowd. His voice was steady. "I accept, and I hope that my presence here can help all of us see strength in new ways." The crowd erupted once more, their cheers louder than before. The princess smiled, feeling something she had never felt in the arena before: respect for her opponent and hope for the future. Later, as the crowd began to leave the arena, Riva approached Darren. "Will you teach me?" she asked simply. Darren nodded. "I will teach you what I have learned. Together, we can become stronger." The princess and the human warrior walked side by side out of the arena, their shadows long in the evening light. In that moment, the future of Zinra and Earth began to change forever. Two worlds, once far apart, were now connected by strength, respect, and the promise of a new beginning. The sun was low in the sky, painting the city of Zinra with warm colors. The grand arena was quiet now, but inside the training grounds, something new was happening. Princess Riva and Darren stood side by side, ready to begin a journey neither had expected. Riva looked at Darren with a mixture of curiosity and respect. She had always trained to be strong in her way, with speed, skill, and the sharp edge of her blade. But now, she realized strength was more than that. It was a lesson she was eager to learn. Darren began simply. "Strength starts in the mind," he said. "Before you fight, you must be calm. You must know who you are and what you believe in. If your mind is strong, your body will follow." Riva listened carefully. She had never thought about fighting like that, in her world. Strength was shown by speed and power. But Darren's words made her think differently. He continued, "Close your eyes and breathe with me." Riva closed her eyes as Darren instructed. She felt the warm air fill her lungs and then leave slowly. Her heart slowed. The noise of the city faded away. For a moment, she felt peace. "Good," Darren said softly. "Now, when you face an enemy, you will be calm, even when they try to scare you." Riva nodded. It was hard to believe, but she trusted Darren. His strength had shown her that. The training was not easy. Darren taught Riva new ways to use her body. He showed her how to move with balance and control. He taught her how to listen to her own breath and calm her mind before every strike. At first, Riva struggled. Her body wanted to rush and strike fast. Her mind wanted to fight hard without thinking. But Darren was patient. He reminded her again and again that true strength was in control, not in rushing. Days passed. The princess grew stronger in ways she had never known. Her movements became smoother, her breath slower and deeper. The fire in her eyes did not burn wild but shone steady and bright. One afternoon, Darren took Riva to the edge of the city where the crystal towers met the forests. Beyond, the trees were tall and old, their leaves whispering in the wind. "Now," Darren said, "we will train the mind and spirit." Riva looked at him, curious. Darren reached into his bag and pulled out a simple wooden sword. It was light and smooth in his hands. "This sword is not about power. It is about connection. You must feel it, not just hold it." Riva took the sword and held it carefully. She felt the wood warm under her fingers. She stood tall and ready. Darren smiled. "Now, I will be the opponent, but I will not attack. You will practice your calm and control. Move slowly. Feel your breath." The training began. Riva moved with care, stepping forward and back, her wooden sword cutting through the air like a gentle wind. She focused on her breath and the sound of the forest around her. Every movement was slow but sure. Darren moved beside her, matching her steps, never rushing, always steady. They moved like a dance, two warriors learning from each other. At the end of the day, Riva felt something new inside her. It was not just strength, it was confidence, calm, and peace. She looked at Darren and smiled. "Thank you for teaching me." Darren returned her smile. "You are strong, Riva. You only needed to find it inside yourself." The days turned into weeks. News of the human warrior and the princess training together spread across the city. Some were surprised, others curious, but all saw that something had changed in Riva. She was no longer the princess who fought with anger and pride. She was a warrior who understood true strength. One evening, as the sun set behind the crystal towers, Darren and Riva stood on a high balcony overlooking the city. The stars began to shine in the darkening sky. Riva spoke softly. "I want to thank you again, Darren. You showed me a new way. I will carry this lesson with me always." Darren nodded. "And I have learned much from you as well. Your courage and spirit are inspiring." The princess looked at the stars, then back at Darren. "What will happen next?" Darren smiled. "We will prepare. This is only the beginning. Many challenges are coming, and we must be ready." Riva felt a new fire in her heart, not the wild fire of anger, but a steady flame of purpose and hope. Together, they looked out over the city, ready for whatever the future might bring. The city of Zinner lay quiet beneath the early morning sun. The crystal towers shimmered with the light of a new day. But beneath the calm surface, a change was coming. Something old was waking, and the future depended on those who could stand strong together. Princess Riva stood on the balcony of her chambers, looking out across the city. Her mind was full of thoughts. The lessons from Darren, the human warrior, had changed her. She no longer saw strength as only power or skill with a sword. Now she understood it as courage. Calm and heart. Behind her, footsteps echoed softly. Darren entered the room, his armor left behind, wearing simple clothes. He smiled gently. "The council will meet soon," he said. "They need to hear what we have learned." Riva nodded. "And they need to prepare. Something is coming." The message had arrived a week ago, a warning from the outer stars. A dark force was moving towards Zinra, a threat unlike any the city had seen before. The people of Zinra knew how to fight, but this enemy was strange, powerful, and unknown. It was clear they would need more than weapons and armor to face it. The council chamber was filled with the leaders of Zinra. Their faces were serious as Riva and Darren entered together. The room fell silent. Riva spoke first. The battle we fought in the arena was not just a test of strength. It was a sign of change. We cannot fight the coming threat with old ways alone. We must join our strength, human and Zinran, to stand against what is coming. The council members exchanged looks. Some were doubtful, others curious. Darren stepped forward. On Earth, I learned that no one can fight alone. True strength comes from unity, from trust. We must share our knowledge, train together, and prepare for this enemy as one. One elder spoke. What do you suggest, Darren? We train not only in battle, but in mind and spirit. We prepare for war, yes, but also for peace. We teach each other what we know. We become a force stronger than any armor. The council nodded slowly, seeing the truth in his words. The princess smiled. Knowing this was the future. The days that followed were filled with preparation. Zinran warriors trained with Darren and his earth tactics. They learned to breathe, to focus, to calm their minds before the fight. In return, Darren learned the art of the blade from Riva, the strength of the crystal towers. In the spirit of HFY Nora. Together, they built a new army, one of mind, heart, and body. One evening, as the sun set behind the mountains, a warning alarm sounded across the city. Dark shapes appeared in the sky. Strange ships moving fast through the stars. Riva stood at the city gates, her sword ready. Darren was beside her, shield in hand. The enemy was here. The battle began with a roar. The dark ships fired energy blasts that lit up the night sky. The Zinran warriors fought with all their strength, but the enemy was fierce and strange. It was not just a fight of weapons, but of will. Riva remembered Darren's lessons. She closed her eyes briefly, breathing deeply, calming her mind. When she opened them, she felt a steady power inside. She moved through the battle like water, flowing around the enemy's strikes and finding their weak points. Darren fought beside her, his calm strength like a rock in a storm. Together, they led the warriors forward, showing them the power of courage and calm. The battle lasted through the night. The dark ships were strong, but the unity of the Zinran and human warriors was stronger. With every strike, they pushed the enemy back. At dawn, the last enemy ship fell from the sky, crashing beyond the city walls. The city of Zinra stood victorious. The people cheered. But Riva and Darren knew this was only the beginning. The galaxy was full of dangers, but also of hope. Riva turned to Darren. We fought as one. This is the new strength. Together, we can face anything. Darren smiled. The future is ours to build, a future where strength is more than armor. It is courage, heart, and unity. The sun rose higher, lighting the city and the faces of its people. A new dawn had come for Zinra and Earth, a dawn of hope and strength beyond armor.